Hey guys, it's Coach Lainey here with Steel Strength Training. I'm the nutrition specialist here at Steel Strength, and today we're talking about a very controversial hot topic called seed oils. All right, are they good? Are they bad? How do we process all the information out today, and what do we do with it? So we're going to talk about that. So first, what are seed oils? Which ones are we talking about? So I have a list of all the seed oils in terms of what we're cooking with, and I have them. This is by Dr. Kate. drkate.com has a great resource that puts all of the different seed oils in different categories and how to understand them, why they're good, why they're bad, what should we have in excess, what should we have in moderation, what should we try not to have at all. So there are 3 different categories. There's good fats, there's okay but not great, and then there's bad fats. First, we have traditional fats and oils, aka virgin oils, and some of those are avocado oil, butter, ghee, cocoa butter, coconut oil, lard, olive oil, peanut oil. There's a whole list. I'm not going to go through all of them. Tallow, and so on. Caution, some to use that are good fats, but to use with caution is anything like walnut oil, flax oil, sesame oil, so on and so forth, which I will give you guys the list for you to look at on your own. All right, so the reason why, there's a lot of reasons, but the main reason why good fats are good is because these ones on these lists need to be unrefined, which you can find them unrefined and in their natural form, which means when you cook with them, they are safe with heat. They are not ultra processed and unstable in terms of the chemical bonds, because we'll get into why the bad fats are unstable and what the issue is with heating them and cooking with them and why that's dangerous. All right, so some that are okay but not great is going to be refined peanut oil, refined avocado, refined coconut, refined palm, fully hydrogenated oils and fats. So why these specifically, some of these oils were in the good fats category. Why they are not in the good fats category is because they are refined. So when they're refined, these fatty acids are industrially, can't say that word, refined, which means they are processed and broken down, which can cause issues, and I'll get into that. Bad fats. These are unstable fatty acids in industrially refined oils. So these are ones that you should not eat and that you should try to avoid them if at all possible, which is hard in our food industry. So these are unstable. The buzzword for this, for unstable fatty acids, is PUFA, which is polyunsaturated fatty acids. I learned about these in school, didn't really realize until looking into it more what polyunsaturated fats really mean and why they can be considered dangerous, which we'll get into them, but first I'm just telling you which ones we're talking about. This is in the don't eat category. Corn oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, soy oil, sunflower oil, safflower, rice bran, grapeseed, vegetable oil, soy, lecithin. There's a lot. I'm not going to get into all of them, but that kind of gives you a general idea of where we're at. So what is PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and why are they bad? Well, these seed oils that we talked about in the dangerous bad category, they contain high percentages of polyunsaturated fats. All right, so they're unstable, they break down rapidly when exposed to chemical stress. And I wanted to say this, and I'll have this in the show notes. I'm getting a lot of these quotes and information from Dr. Kate. I did listen to her podcast and other podcasts, but she did a really good job. And she's also she's a doctor, and she studied seed oils and their negative effects on human health and metabolism way before that it was even a hot topic. So she had been feeling this way about seed oils in the food industry before it was even super popular. So I think that's something to note. Okay, so PUFAs are unstable and break down rapidly when exposed to chemical stress. So, have you ever heard of varnish? Well, carpenters use this to finish wood. Varnish is also made from vegetable oils, including soy and linseed, which is kind of like canola oil. Because these oils are mostly composed of PUFAs, PUFAs then react with oxygen in the air, and they polymerize into a nice hard coating that helps the varnish on the wood. All right, this is great for your floors, but it is not good for your body and your brain and your mitochondria and your arteries. And Dr. Kate goes into a lot of the reason why in her book, but a little PUFAs are not bad for us, but a lot of them, which we are getting a lot of them in our diet today because of these seed oils, which are mostly composed of these. During the refining process of these oils, it not only strips away antioxidants, but it also makes PUFAs toxic by exposing them to heat, pressure, metal, and bleaching agents. So then these molecules are toxic because they promote free radical reactions that damage our cellular machinery, including mitochondria, enzymes, hormone receptors, and DNA. There's more information on this, but I'm just giving a quick overview of why this is dangerous. Also, foods that are cooked in seed oils are full of toxic compounds, and she believes that in consuming these high PUFA seed oils in large quantities over time, which is a lot of America, it's going to create some changes in our metabolism. And basically, the metabolic changes begin with the fact that our body has no choice but to store the extra PUFAs in our body fat. Over decades, the concentration of PUFAs in our body fat gradually rises. To put this into perspective, back in the early 1900s, our body fat PUFA percentage was 2 to 4. Today, it's 10 to 30%. All right? So that proves and shows kind of where we're at in terms of how our body is storing polyunsaturated fatty acids. The concentration of PUFAs has risen to 10 to 30%. And it's storing this in our body fat, which I think is interesting. So back to seed oils in terms of what I've been mentioning. Okay, whenever they're cooked and whenever they're heated, they're unstable. And then we are facing the issue of oxidation. So they're very reactive, and whenever they're heated, they oxidize, which can produce harmful byproducts that may contribute to chronic diseases and the issues that we see in America and across the country, or across the world, really. Then they can produce things like hexane. They can produce other byproducts when heated because of how unstable they are. They can also contain trans fats and other issues when heated, just because they're so unstable, and that's mainly because of how they're processed industrially, and when heated, how unstable they are. They're going to lead to these main issues that we see here. So hexane, any byproducts of the unstable oil can then lead to metabolic issues. They can lead to chronic diseases and things like that we're facing. So I hope this makes sense in terms of kind of why this is a problem. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, seed oils are bad because they're inflammatory, which is true. They can be inflammatory, and that's a lot of the issue, is that they are inflammatory. But I wanted to talk about what's happening chemically, because I think that's the issue, is that we don't understand that. So it's just like, oh, seed oils are bad, but we don't really know why. Seed oils are bad because they are unstable and that they are producing carcinogens when heated. That's the main issue, is that. And then it's also producing omega-3 and omega-6 imbalances, but the main one is the when heated thing that is causing the issues. So when choosing your oils, we want them to be unrefined virgin oils. That's very key, unrefined, all right? So that's something to pay attention to. Unrefined basically means it's not chemically processed, it's not been used and heated in the industry, in the industrial processing system. But the refined oils, like refined avocado oils, that's a super common one. That means that it's been processed and it's been heated or whatever it is. I think different oils have different refining processes, but we don't want that because that's going to change the compound and cook out some of the helpful benefits to that particular oil. So go for the list, which I'll put below, of things that are good to cook with, and so on. I hope you made it to the end of the video because this is a very important part, and I'm kind of summing up how we internalize all this information that I just threw at you guys. Okay, so there is very many camps in the seed oil world, very many opinions. Sometimes a lot of dietitians and a lot of textbooks, and even when I was in school, I learned that seed oils are not bad for you, which is interesting considering what we just talked about. So how do we sort through all this stuff, and how do we sort through kind of where we go from here? So I do want to say, and I hope you've gotten to this part of the video because people are probably already mad at this point, but seed oils are not the number one problem with America's obesity and chronic disease issue, all right? I think it is a problem, and I think it's contributing to the problem that we see in America, but I do not think it is the main cause or the only cause of disease, obesity, and chronic whatever. There's a lot of things at play here, all right? Seed oils are not the number one culprit, and I think people like to blame things, which is fine. But it is not the only thing wrong with how we're living in America today, all right? So what I see with people is that they take this and they run with it. They are suddenly fearful. They'll never know how to eat normal food again, and they're living in fear basically in response to these seed oils. However, I do not recommend consuming seed oils, and I think it's safe to limit them as much as you can. The interesting part about this, and this is what I want to emphasize the most, if you eat a real food diet, which means we're eating mostly real food, we're not buying things pre-made, we're not buying things that are in the middle aisles of the grocery store, all right? They're single ingredient foods. We're making single ingredient meals with a bunch of single ingredients mixed together, okay? That is what we recommend at Steel, is knowing what's in your food, looking at ingredient labels. There's real food as the ingredients. And if you do that, guess what? You won't really consume that much seed oils. But the thing that is interesting about the seed oil topic is that when you eat processed food, you're going to eat seed oils, all right? They go hand in hand. If you're going to eat processed food, you're going to eat seed oils. If you eat real food and you eat healthy, you're probably not going to eat a lot of seed oils besides when you go out to eat. So the best way to limit this is just to cook your own food, to look at ingredient labels, and to eat mostly real food, okay? It doesn't really take much besides that, all right? So when you do that, you're knocking out many birds with one stone, because there's so many things wrong with processed food outside of seed oils. When you cut out those, you're cutting out all the bad stuff, and then you're just left with real food that God gave us to eat. It's perfect. It's not that simple, but it really is in a lot of ways if we think about it. If you want to understand more about the metabolic reasons for seed oils, Dr. Kate has a great book on it, has a great podcast that I can link below talking about these things, which is super interesting, which I didn't want to get too scientific for the sake of this shorter video. But that can be super helpful in terms of understanding kind of what's happening in the body with these seed oils. Something I want to note, why was butter and margarine and lard so hated on for so many years, and now everyone's like, oh, cook with butter, and we're all confused out here because we've been told to never eat butter our whole lives, okay? So, a couple things are at play here. Butter is super natural, okay? There's processed butter in the store. You can see a difference in the colors of butter based off of how processed they are. But butter is super natural, super great to cook with, adds a lot of flavor. However, you can cook with too much butter because butter, in case you haven't realized, is super high in calorie. But guess what? Whenever you cook, you do not need that much, all right? If we're using half a stick, we're using a whole stick, we're cooking with too much butter. I'm talking literally this much to use to grease up the pan, all right? You will live. If that's going to make you gain weight, then we have other issues as far as calorie number goes, all right? So count your calories. Use natural sources of oils or things to grease your pans instead of these seed oils that are processed and highly toxic when heated, all right? So use butter, use unrefined oils that are on the list, okay? I will say, as far as weight loss goes, you can have too much butter. You can have too much oil. Oil is fat, so it's going to add up in calories really fast, which is important to note when you're cooking, okay? I don't think you need to add that much because you're adding a lot of calories when you're not eating as much food with that. So, this was a lot of information. I apologize if it was too much information, but I really wanted to give a good overview. I hope this helped. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I will link Dr. Kate's article and podcast and book below so that y'all can get a bigger overview if you're interested. But yes, I hope this was helpful, and cook with good oils that are unrefined, and don't be scared of butter.